Nigel Farage, you heard there, saying he's perfectly entitled to ask questions about law and order in this country. What do you say to him?
Yes, but he needs to do so responsibly. I'm going to begin, if I may, not with Nigel Farage, because this is not about Nigel Farage. This is about those who've lost their lives, the devastated families who are now coming to terms with their lives completely changed because children have been killed, others have been injured as well. That's where we should be beginning any conversation, not about Nigel Farage and his scant understanding of what terrorism is. The wider community in Southport is now struggling to come to terms with this shocking attack, but now is having to deal with also the violence and the rioting that has now subsequently played out, thanks to the false claims and disinformation whipped up on the internet with the frenzy of hate that's been spreading this disinformation. Many commentators have fueled this, including the English Defence League and also Nigel Farage as well. You know, this is a tragedy of loss of human life, but this is a sickening display of humanity, of what's happened afterwards. The speed in which fake news went from swirling around on the internet to violence offline in reality should concern us all. You know, why didn't Twitter, for example, aware that there would be speculation after the attacks, not better police its own platform and remove harmful and insightful content? I said before that nobody actually should have a Twitter account, a social media account, without being accountable. In other words, being charged, for example, £5 a year for that privilege. It means you remove that ability to be anonymous. But Farage wasn't anonymous. He knew exactly what he was doing. This is straight from the Trump playbook. It's bad enough to see hatred ramped up online with those comments, but from a member of parliament. I am disgusted how a sitting member of parliament can deliberately inflame tensions without any justification. He then acknowledged that himself. He says, I don't base this on anything. I'm simply posing those questions. Well, any MP is actually a political leader of sorts in the mainstream. What you say matters. Regardless of what party you represent, you should always be putting your country's interests first. And I asked this to Nigel Farage, how on earth did you help Britain at all with making these comments and fueling speculation in the way that you did?
Do you think he bears some responsibility for what happened last night with those violent demonstrations?
I don't think it's been helpful for me to enlighten that at all. I'm not sure. People will make their own judgments as to whether that is the case. I know it did not help matters at all. It didn't calm things down. That's what every member of parliament should be doing, whether you're on the back bench or front bench or even representing a minor party. Your interest of what happens in Britain and where Britain is going, that should be first and foremost in your mind. And what he did, leap to conclusions, go on air when speculation was rife, growing already, but details were not there. Why not wait until you actually have more information before you choose to jump on the air and make these claims such as this, which, as I say, take us in absolutely the wrong direction? Now, I say these comments. Who am I? You introduced me as a former MP. I lost my brother because of terrorism back in 2002 in the Bali bombing. I'm very concerned as to how we manage and deal with terrorist attacks. The threat hasn't gone away. It is still there. So for people like Farage and indeed others to somehow speculate that this might be the case in Britain when they really do not have a clue, I'm afraid it does make me quite angry indeed.
Do you not think, though, that when these incidents happen, it is a significant issue whether or not they were linked to terrorism? Because, of course, we've seen things like the killing of your former colleague, David Amis, where there did seem to be a political motive involved.
You're absolutely right. And that's why we take our time to understand the details. We learn from the police and we get the background details, and then we can make appropriate judgment and then react accordingly. But the idea that you do this literally hours before the police have even made a full statement as to the background of this, again, I fall into that trap of speculating myself. But having studied this, having been close to this for so long, somebody who's 17 years old that attacks children, that suggests, and I'm not basing this on anything at all, but there's probably a mental health issue involved here too. I simply don't know, and it would be wrong to make judgments on that itself. What we can do, whether it be David Amis or indeed this case now, is wait for the details before we make judgment. We certainly do not do anything that will inflame and fuel the situation and encourage others that have a sad agenda to then jump on a train, go to Southport and actually make the situation even worse.
Because, of course, what Mr. Farage is saying is that he was only asking legitimate questions.
Those aren't the right questions to be asked now. They're irresponsible questions, and they're done with Farage's agenda. That's what they're done, and that's very, very clear indeed. And the fact that you've started this conversation by saying Nigel Farage has removed some of those comments.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't. Russia Today, that was informing him, has withdrawn some of them.
The fact that you've even mentioned Russia Today and Farage is another conversation in its own right. I really don't want to speak about Nigel Farage anymore. Okay. I'm more concerned about how we manage this situation in the future, how we're moving into this space right now where so quickly a chunk of our society can actually rally and react and respond in such a violent way. That is a question that must concern us all. This will happen again because of the power of social media, because of the power of fake news and disinformation to spread so rapidly. And as I stressed, the way to deal with this is for the online organizations to better patrol what they're managing, but also for everybody, all of us that use social media, to be charged, and then we're accounted for. We paid £5 a year to use Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it today, then that would actually prevent people from being able to join in and fuel speculation, which has led to the tragedy of the last couple of days.
You are speaking out very clearly about Nigel Farage's behaviour. Are you surprised that none of your senior Conservative colleagues, none of the leadership candidates have commented?
I'm sure as time will go on, they will make their own judgments as well. As I say, I come from a very personal position on this. I do not normally make personal comments about other individuals. I'm not sure it's wise. We see it a lot in American politics. I think it's unhelpful. But this needed to be called out for what it was: unhelpful, insightful, and taking us completely in the wrong direction. And I yet to understand exactly how much Nigel Farage has rowed back, but I'm pleased he's done so. And I hope he'll be a little bit more considerate before leaping to the news wires, particularly after we've seen the riots and so forth, then follow so quickly after what's happened there as well. Much to learn from what happened after this event's tragedy in Southport.
Tobias Ellwood, thank you very much indeed for your comments.